Chapter 12, Work and Machines. The scientific definition of work is different from how we use the word every day in science. Work is when an applied force makes an object move in the same direction as the applied force. So towing a car is work because the applied force and resulting motion are both in the same direction. Lifting a book off the ground is also work. You apply a force upward and the book moves upward. The amount of work depends on both the amount of force applied and the distance across which the force is applied. Work equals force by distance. Work is measured in joules. Force is measured in newtons. And distance is measured in meters. To calculate work, we can only input force that is in the same direction of motion, meaning if you are holding a basket of laundry, you won't be doing work as you walk down a hall, but as soon as you walk up the stairs, you are doing work. Why? The force applied to the laundry basket to overcome gravity and pick it up is vertical. When you walk down the hall, the motion of the basket is horizontal, not vertical. So you cannot include the horizontal distance in your calculation of work. When you walk up the stairs, the force is vertical because you have to overcome gravity, and the motion is also vertical. So you are doing work. Sometimes the force is only partially in the direction of motion. For example, if you can't fully carry the trash, you lift up a little as you drag the bag to overcome sliding friction. So you apply force in two directions, vertical and horizontal. However, because the bag is only moving across the floor, only the amount of force that is applied in the horizontal direction is considered work. Power. Power is the rate at which work is done. In other words, how quickly or slowly work is done. More powerful machines perform work faster. Power equals work over time. Power is measured in watts, and time is measured in seconds. Simple machines. To make work easier, humans invented machines. When you think of a machine, you think of a tractor or a car, but a machine can be super simple. A machine is anything that makes work easier. Even a ramp is a machine. A simple machine doesn't reduce the total amount of work that is accomplished, but it decreases the amount of force required to do the same amount of work by increasing the distance. Inclined plane. An inclined plane or ramp is an example of a simple machine. It reduces the amount of effort required by increasing the work's distance. Think about pushing a really heavy box into the back of a truck. With a ramp, you can roll the box up the ramp, which requires much less force than lifting the box into the truck. The box ends up at the same height, so the same amount of work is accomplished. However, because you push the box across a greater distance, less effort was required at any given time. The longer the inclined plane, the less force required to raise the object the same distance. Wedge. A wedge is a movable inclined plane, and it reduces the amount of work required to split or lift objects. Some examples are knives, axes, doorstops, and plows. To reduce the amount of effort required to cut firewood, people use wedge-shaped axes to split wood. It has to travel farther, but an axe requires less force than simply pulling a log in half with your bare hands. Screw. A screw is a wedge, an inclined plane, wrapped around a shaft or post. As you turn the screw, the wedge pushes the object up the shaft, or the screw into the object. The amount of force required to screw a screw into the wall is less than it would be to hammer a nail of the same size. That's because the spiral of the screw has to go a much farther distance because it is turned so many times. Lever. A lever reduces the amount of effort required to lift something. A lever is like a seesaw, a rigid bar or plank with a pivot point called a fulcrum. When you apply a force called effort to one side of the fulcrum, the load on the other side also moves. Think about sitting on a seesaw with a friend. When you push down on the seat, your friend goes up into the air. Even your friend is twice your mass. Correction. Even if your friend is twice your mass, you can lift him by having him sit closer to the fulcrum. You push over more distance, so you need less force. Levers are classified according to where the fulcrum and load are placed and where you apply the force or effort. There is a first class, second class, and third class. Wheel and axle. A wheel and axle make it easy to turn something by attaching a larger wheel to an axle or rod, which is essentially a smaller wheel. There are two ways wheels and axles are used. They increase the output of force. Turning a larger wheel requires less force than turning a smaller wheel. Think about twisting open a faucet. It is much easier to turn a faucet handle. It is much easier to turn a faucet handle a few inches than it would be to turn the pencil thin neck. The axle exerts the output force. They decrease the distance required to move the wheel. Turning the smaller wheel requires more force than turning the larger wheel, but the smaller wheel must be turned a much smaller distance. To accomplish the same work output, this mechanism is used on a bike. You apply the force over a shorter distance with the pedal, and the back wheel exerts less force. Over a longer distance, the wheel exerts the output force. Pulleys. A pulley is a wheel with a rope wrapped around it. The rope fits into a groove on the wheel, and it is used to either magnify the force you apply to the rope or change the direction of the force so it is easier to pull. Work as energy and efficiency. The energy of an object increases as you do work on the object. For example, when you push an object, it begins to move, and that motion is in a form of energy. Work is equivalent to energy. All the work done on an object is conserved in the form of energy. Energy comes in many forms, such as heat and motion. If you are doing work on an object and some of the energy you expend is lost in the form of heat, you have lost some of your work. How much work or energy you lose to heat determines efficiency. A machine that doesn't lose much energy to heat reduces more work. Correction. A machine that doesn't lose much energy to heat produces more work and is therefore more efficient.
Check your answers. 1. Anytime a person applies a force in the direction of motion, he or she is doing work. Jumping up in the air, lifting a backpack, and throwing a ball are all examples of work. 2. Work equals force by distance. 3. A simple machine does work with one motion, and a compound machine combines different machines to produce work. 4. Transporting dirt by using a wheelbarrow is an example of an activity that uses a second-degree lever. 5. Vocabulary. Fulcrum.